This right here is my custom dividend tracker showing pretty much more or less every single stock and ETF that I have across multiple dividend growth portfolios across multiple different brokerages. Now in this video, I want to share with you guys some of my largest positions across all my portfolios, and of course explain to you exactly why I decided to purchase and build out these positions as large as I did, and what my strategy is moving forward. Now if you want to see behind the scenes of a 7-figure portfolio and the exact construction behind it, make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. I just finished my brand new dividend investing ebook where I share exactly how I went from zero to now over 7 figures invested, and also on how I earned more than $6,000 per month in dividends. I also finished my custom dividend tracker that you can use to track your dividend income progress on an ongoing basis. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. Now first off, just to recap, like I said, these are the majority of my positions across all my portfolios in no specific order. And as of right now, this is all estimated, of course, so keep that in mind, but this portfolio generates around $70,000 yearly, more or less in dividend income. But again, keep in mind, there's positions in here like Jepi, like Jepi, we even have some TSLY. So the amount of dividends are going to be different because not every single one of the positions pay the same amount ongoingly. Now this portfolio construction over the past 7 or so years I've been building it has been pretty much to buy different dividend paying stocks or ETFs that have different but yet similar things to offer. For the most part, I look for stocks or ETFs that have overall a healthy foundation, all have to pay a starting dividend, and for the most part have the potential to grow in share price over time. Now through this portfolio, you're going to see that there's certain positions that have done that exactly, things like Apple. There's also positions in here that unfortunately have not been as lucky to do so, things like my 1,262 shares of Verizon stock that have traded down pretty much over the past few years. But overall, the portfolio is a constant project that I'm trying to build into a better and better portfolio long term. And for the most part, everything in this portfolio is for sale for the right price, although I do have some buy and hold forever positions in the portfolio, like something like SCHD, for example. Now, before we go through some of my top positions and I explain why they're my top positions, I also want to make it clear that everyone has a different strategy, a different timeline, different risk tolerance, and everything else when it comes to long-term dividend growth investing. Like for example, for me personally, I'm currently a 31-year-old dividend growth investor, and although I'm not looking to necessarily use these dividends paid in this portfolio today or tomorrow to pay for bills, I'm currently reinvesting all the dividends consistently into more shares of different stocks and ETFs on a yearly, monthly, weekly basis. But that being said, I do have a timeline where maybe within the next 5 years, I do possibly want to take a few $1,000s dividends per month and take that money to use to help cover bills, or maybe for things like travel, or maybe even possibly just to help out friends or family. So because of my specific timeline and when I'm most likely trying to have access to dividend income to use for different life expenses, I did build out a portfolio that does have generally a little bit of a higher yield, especially for my age. Now again, things can always change, my strategy can always change, but for the most part, since I started investing, it's been pretty solid. And that's basically been the thesis so far. Now to go over some of my largest positions in this portfolio, let's first start off with my 1,000 shares of Apple stock, which are currently valued at somewhere around $190,000. Now I bought these shares of Apple years ago, and I started buying Apple pretty much right towards the beginning of my investing journey. I of course did not just purchase 1,000 shares of Apple at one moment. I bought Apple over a long time frame where at times I bought 10 shares of Apple stock. If I had a large amount of cash balance, I also bought a few Apple shares here and there when the price was down. And overall, my average cost per share with Apple is right around $118 per share. Now keep in mind, Apple doesn't pay the largest amount in dividends, of course. Apple only has like a 1% dividend yield. But as you probably guessed it, as a dividend growth investor, I bought Apple for the portfolio to more or less be more of a growth position. But still with that, Apple does pay a dividend on a quarterly basis. And it also has gotten bigger and bigger since I started buying my shares of Apple years ago. Now my plan with these Apple shares is for the most part to continue to sell covered calls on the shares, earn a ton of premium for doing so while I hold onto the shares, and maybe sell off my Apple shares someday and put that money into something a little bit more diversified like SCHD, DGRW, or maybe even DGRO. But for now, the Apple shares are still in my possession and I continue to hold them, at least for the time being. Now, one of my next largest positions in this portfolio is my 2,818 shares of ticker symbol O Realty Income. Now, my average cost across all my portfolios when it comes to Realty Income is right around probably $52 or so. And keep in mind, I have been selling cover calls on my Realty Income shares basically since I started buying Realty Income several years ago. So my true cost basis, if I were to use all the premium I've earned, is obviously much, much lower than that. But with my almost 2,900 shares of Realty Income, because I do have some more shares to add into this dividend tracker as well that I bought recently, my Realty Income shares pay me somewhere around $700 or $800 on a monthly basis in dividends. Now my thought process here is I of course could use a similar amount of money to maybe use as a down payment on a rental property, but I'd much much rather use this money and buy ticker symbol low, where I can earn dividends for doing basically no management, no work, and on top of that I can sell cover calls on the shares to protect against downside and earn premium for doing so. Now, because realty income is one of my largest positions in this portfolio, I don't know how much more realty income I'm going to be buying long term, because as I get older and as the portfolio grows, I am a little bit more and more interested into buying into dividend growth ETFs just to sort of simplify things. But even still, I think I am going to try to build out this position to 3,000 shares over the next year, more or less, and then we'll see where we go from there. One of my next largest positions in this portfolio, and like I sort of mentioned towards the beginning of this video, it's not one of my favorites by any means, but it's my 1,262 shares of Verizon stock, ticker symbol VZ. Now, I started buying Verizon a long time ago. I think I started buying shares in 2018 or something. And I bought shares of Verizon because the telecommunication stocks in general were all offering really high yields back in the day. And although I'll admit I never was extremely bullish on telecommunication stocks, I personally thought that at least when it comes to high quality telecommunications, I thought Verizon stock was going to do just fine long term. And of course, who knows what's going to happen in the future. But at least over the last year or so, Verizon stock has been trading lower, which again doesn't really matter to me too much because at least as of now, knock on wood, they've been paying their dividend consistently. And I've also been selling cover calls on my shares of Verizon. So my cost basis, if I were to use the premium I've earned from the options trading, is definitely much lower, probably somewhere near $45 per share. So as far as share price or paper loss, I'm not down all that much when it comes to Verizon. And on top of that, Verizon pays a hefty dividend to me every single quarter, which is absolutely awesome. But looking back, I definitely never would have bought as many shares of Verizon stock as I ended up doing, just because again, it's sort of a lot of risk to put all that money into just one single stock, especially in the telecommunications. A few of my other largest positions in the portfolio are things like my 1,248 shares at Jepi or even my 2,700 shares of qyld. Now, I pretty much bought both of these as a yield move, of course, to really boost the yield in the portfolio. And like I said, because I do have sort of a short-term plan to use some of the dividends, it's not like I'm a 31-year-old investor that's looking to wait 20, 30, or 40 years to have access to any of the dividend income. I'm definitely potentially looking to have access to it much sooner. And again, for those reasons, I definitely wanted to buy different investment vehicles that can offer somewhat of a stable share price and strategy, but offer massive dividends on a monthly basis. And although I am down a little bit on my shares when it comes to qyld, as of right now, you can see my average cost is right around $19 or so. I have earned a ton of dividends from qyld over the past several years, so it's definitely somewhat made up for it. And again, at least as of this moment, I'm not looking to sell any of it anytime soon. Now with Jepi, it's definitely been a little bit better. My average cost for Jepi is much lower than even where it's trading as of right now, which is nice. But when it comes to some of these higher yielding covered call ETFs, I'm pretty much for the most part done with them, although I do have my eye on some more shares of JepQ, just because JepQ's holdings are a little bit more aggressive, and because I'm not necessarily trying to completely quote unquote retire or live off the dividends today or tomorrow. I think having a little bit more exposure to some technology would definitely help the portfolio. So that's the portfolio as it sits right now. Those are some of my bigger positions within the portfolio. Keep in mind, I do have other bigger positions in the portfolio that we could go over in future videos. And definitely comment down below if you guys like this style of video where we're kind of just hanging out and I'm sharing with you some of my largest positions. But because we definitely do have some big positions in things even like public storage, we got a lot of VNQ. We got some names in here that I've been stacking shares of for years and years now. But like I said, moving forward, at least in 2024 and beyond, I'm mostly looking to put a lot of my reinvested dividend income, as far as cash balance goes, into things like the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF SCHD. And then maybe later on this year, I'm going to start buying some DGRW and some DGRO. But as the portfolio sits as of right now, I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. What is your number one favorite stock or ETF that you've seen in this portfolio as it sits as of current? Drop it in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like on it and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.